Never up, never down, never. Like a theme in a song.
Today I'm going to share with you 8 mistakes I made while painting my hallway and all of my interior doors black. Well, I didn't paint my hallway black, just the doors were black, but you know what I mean. My first mistake when painting this hallway was not painting the trim and the baseboards first. I didn't originally intend to paint the trim, but once I started painting this new color, which is a very light shade of gray, it's called Sherwin Williams Snowbound, I quickly realized that the trim against the new color looks kind of yellowish, so I ended up having to go to Lowe's and get a can of ultra white semi-gloss paint for the trim and baseboards. The color I'm painting over is also Sherwin Williams. It's called Mindful Gray, and that's the color that my entire house is in all of the main living areas. I love the color and it's beautiful, but for this hallway that doesn't have very good lighting, it's just kind of dark. So here you can see the contrast between the two colors and what a huge difference it makes, just this little bit that I've painted here.
I can see everything.
My second mistake was not taping the floors or really protecting them in any way. I thought that I wouldn't drip paint. Now, I'm not a professional by any means, but I thought that this was going to be pretty simple and I wasn't going to drip paint. I ended up dripping paint all over the place. So eventually I did get smart and tape up the floors, but it wasn't until much later.
I always do. Never thought I wouldn't jump. Oh, what a fool.
This is the point where you see me give up and I start painting the trim with the existing color that I was using. But the color I'm using is a satin finish and the trim is semi-gloss. So I went to Lowe's and got the semi-gloss in ultra white and went and repainted. So here you can now see that I had taped up the baseboards whenever I did the trim. I didn't record that because this day just took me so long and it was so frustrating. I didn't even show myself painting the walls, which would have been super satisfying. I just wanted to get this over with. This was also the day before Thanksgiving, and I was incredibly optimistic to think that I was going to be able to get all of this done in one day. It took me 3 days before I was finished with everything.
Someone help me catch my breath again.
I love using these monkey hooks to hang pictures that have just a little center hanging thing. If it's not one that goes in the center, I use command strips, but for the ones that just have the thing in the center, this is fantastic. And they're also really great for things that are super heavy, like the mirror I hang in the hallway a little bit later in this video. Moving on to day number 2, we're getting ready to do the doors, and I'm cutting plastic to put underneath the door because I decided it was a great idea to just paint them on the hinges. Spoiler alert, that's not a great idea. So my mistake was not taping the plastic to the floor, because you'll see as I start painting the doors in a minute, as soon as the paintbrush or roller touches the plastic, it moves, and then I have to slide it back, and then it touches something I don't want it to touch. Eventually I got smart and I just taped it to the floor, but when I first started, I was not very smart, and I learned a lot of lessons, as you'll see. The color I chose for my interior doors is Sherwin Williams Tricorn Black in satin finish. Mistake number 4 is using this large roller to paint the doors. I think it's probably intended to use on walls because that's what I used on my walls yesterday. But the texture of the roller just isn't that great for doors. Use one of those smaller rollers, the 4-inch ones, that are specifically for cabinets and doors. And that brings us to mistake number 5, not removing the hardware. My husband said, "Just tape it, that'll be easier." Yeah, he lied. Here you can see me fighting with the plastic, which is why I recommend taping it to the floor. In the previous clip, you see me paint the door frame, which is like the outside of the door, or the frame around the door, not the door jamb part. Anyway, after painting the first one, I realized it was kind of difficult, especially because it's still on the hinges, so I decided not to do that on this door. I was about 3 doors in before I decided no, I needed to do that, so I had to go back and then repaint all of the outsides of the door. Also, side note, I'm only painting the front of the doors that you can see from the hallway. I'm not painting the inside of the doors where the bedrooms are. So the back of those doors are still white.
I thought you knew I could die to keep you near. We've got a fire in the tent. It's 5:30 a.m. Let's be the kids who left, get in trouble again. That star's got nothing on you. That one's brand new, still it's got nothing on you.
Here's where I got smart and taped the plastic to the floor. Also, I'm aware that the first coat of this paint really looks terrible, and I was really concerned as I was painting these doors because once you commit to this, there's really no going back. So you just have to trust the process and know that it'll all turn out great.
We've got a fire in the tent. It's 5:30 a.m. Let's be the kids who left, get in trouble again. That star's got nothing on you. That one's brand new, still it's got nothing on you tonight.
This is the moment I decided to go back and paint the inside frames of all the doors, because when I closed this door, I realized I could still see the white from the outside. So painting the little frame outline of the door was necessary if you're leaving your trim and everything else white.
We've got a fire in the tent. It's 5:30 a.m. Let's be the kids who left, get in trouble again. That star's got nothing on you. That one's brand new, still it's got nothing on you.
That's my husband taking off the bifold doors for me to paint, and once he took those off and I started painting them not attached to the hinges, I realized that was a mistake, not removing all of the other doors. So mistake number 7 is not removing all of the doors. So much easier to paint that way.
Every day I'm looking for
We're on day 3. All of the doors that we took off have been rehung, and the rest of the doors are dry enough to actually close now. So I'm going to hang this mirror that I got as an early Christmas present from my best friend. I'm walking back and forth in the hallway to see what it looks like as I come forward, because the light that is hanging directly above this mirror is actually not centered directly in the hallway, but I want the mirror centered in the hallway as you walk down. So when you see pictures of it, it's going to look a little bit off, but just know the mirror is centered, the light is not.
don't even know the enemy when I feel out of touch.
When I put this mirror on the list of stuff I wanted for Christmas, I didn't know that it had the little kick leg behind to use as a stand-up mirror. So when I hung it on the wall, it wasn't hanging flush on the wall. So I took it back down so I could remove the little back part and then hang it back up again, because I'm never going to use it as a stand-up mirror. It's always going to be on this wall.
All I know is every time I see
I am finally finished with my hallway renovation. Doesn't the mirror and the doors look beautiful? As I went to go take pictures, I saw this little grate here looked kind of dusty, so I went to go dust it off, and then I'm like, this dust is not coming off. So I went and got some spray and sprayed it on there and realized how disgusting it is. Those little black pieces of whatever you see falling here, that's like dog hair and dust and dirt. It was so gross, you guys. I'm telling you. Clean your air vent return grates. They're really nasty. Or at least mine were. Now that I've had these doors up for about a week or so now, I can tell you my mistake number 8, which is really the first mistake I made, was not sanding these doors first. If you want the paint to be durable, sand the doors. Thanks so much for watching this video today. I hope you learned from my mistakes, and I will see you next week.